What's up, sexy people? Welcome back to the Sex Mechanic Podcast. I am your host, the Sex Mechanic, aka Jason Benoit, aka Mr. Born to Explore, aka Confident Creator, aka I Did It My Way. And this is the podcast about sex, situationships, and dating. And I typically talk about my personal experiences around those different topics. Now, soon, very soon, I'm going to have to start bringing some of my friends and some of my peoples on here so they can talk about some of these topics with me, because I really want to get some other people involved in these conversations. And I feel like, you would get more out of it too if you were able to hear it from different perspectives besides just my own. So real soon we'll be having other people on and getting other opinions on certain things. All right. So first and foremost, I want to give a real big thanks, a huge thanks to everybody this past week who helped me celebrate my birthday, who did things to surprise me, who were just around during this time where I hit 37, congratulations to me. And it was one of the best birthday experiences I could have asked for, because although it didn't seem like much in terms of, what I could have done or how big we could have gone, it was really nice to see people come out and support me. And, just the love that was shown was priceless. And I appreciate it from everybody who actually came out, and everyone who was a part of the planning, and everybody who was a part of, just making a brother feel good this past week. I really appreciate it. I also want to say thank you to everybody who watched the first episode, because, man, talk about a weight getting lifted off my shoulders after the first one. It's kind of like everything else is smooth sailing, right? So the birthday thing was the reason why you're waiting 2 weeks for this second episode, by the way. So I appreciate the patience as well. Now, I want to introduce a few topics to you, or not topics, but I want to introduce a few segments to the podcast that weren't there on the first episode. We're still tweaking things out, or I'm still tweaking things out for the podcast and making it what I'd like it to be and what it could be. So, bear with me as I make these alterations and changes as we go along. So, for one, the first segment is going to be things to know. The second segment is going to be story time, which most of you are pretty familiar with. That's kind of the theme that I went for on the first podcast, was story time the whole time. And the last segment is going to be what I learned. So we'll go through those segments today, and you'll kind of see how they operate and how they work. Okay, so segment 1 is things to know. Today's topic is being the rebound or the get back guy. All right. And this can apply to guys or women. It's not particular to just dudes, but being that I'm talking about a personal situation, I'm calling it the get back or rebound guy. So I don't know how many of you have been in this situation where you've been the rebound for somebody else, or you've used somebody else as a rebound, either on purpose or by mistake. But this is what the topic is going to be around today. Not only as a rebound, but also as a get back, towards an ex or somebody that upset you, whatever. So the first segment is things to know. Things to know about what a rebound actually is and what I mean by it. So when I say rebound, let me adjust my mic here. When I say rebound, I mean when somebody's in a situation and they get out of a situation, and before they can kind of get over that last situation, they meet somebody else. They either have sex with the person or They just start dating somebody else. That's what a rebound is. You're rebounding from the last situation by jumping into a new situation with somebody else. So sometimes people do it on purpose. Sometimes they don't realize they're doing it, and they might be the types that jump from relationship to relationship, not even realizing until maybe it's brought to their attention that they haven't given themselves time to heal, or maybe it's until a situation comes up and then they realize they probably should be alone for a little bit and figure some things out. So, story time. I've got 3 situations in particular where I know for sure I was used as a rebound or a get back for somebody. And these are 3 situations that I'm going to talk about today, but what I really thought about it is probably double that, maybe 6, 7, something like that. So yeah, when I was thinking about it, I was like, damn, this could have been that situation too. And this too, like when you go back and you analyze things a little deeper, you notice that, damn, this shit be happening. I was over here getting rebounded like I was, coming off the rim, so it happens. It's not something that I'm upset about. It's not something that I feel like people took advantage of me for. It was what it was. Sometimes people need a different situation to help them deal and cope with the last situation. It's kind of human nature to some degree. So I'm definitely not telling these stories to make anybody look bad or, to villainize anybody who was involved, because at the end of the day, it happened the way it happened, and I'm not mad about how it happened. And if anything, it's helped me become better in a lot of different ways, in dating and also in terms of how I am sexually. So I'm thankful for the situations. All right. So the first situation, by the way, these situations happened in my early and mid 20s. So these were really early on in my sexual experience. You're talking about 2 years to between 2 and 5 years in to actually being sexually active. I was a late bloomer, y'all. All right. I had my first sexual encounter, my first penetrative sexual encounter 2 weeks before my 20th birthday. So you got to keep that in mind. I definitely didn't start, in high school or anything like that. So it's kind of late into the game. But once I got in, coach, they weren't taking me out of the game, even though I had some bad games. I had some really bad games, but we'll talk about some of those. So the first encounter where I realized I was, being used as a rebound was a situation back in college. All right. There was this girl in my class, in one of my classes, and we exchanged numbers at some point. I'm trying to remember. We exchanged numbers at some point, and we were both attracted to each other, but we never got into that conversation. I probably did, actually. Knowing myself, I probably approached her as, hey, I'm attracted to you and want to know if I can get your information. That's likely what happened. Yeah, I got to excuse me. Let me get a sip of water. Last time I was really parched and I wasn't staying hydrated. Won't be the same this time. And make sure you guys are staying hydrated too. That's really important. Just for your overall health and wellness. So back to the story. So we exchanged information and then we talked a little bit over the phone. I believe it was mostly texting, but we were in the same class. So at some point, she wanted us to meet up, which was fine. because I like for it to be under the young woman's terms, as opposed to me being super pushy about when we need to meet up. So she told me she wanted to meet up at some point. It was toward the end of the semester, and she came to my place. We chilled. Things quickly went from friendly to sexual. And that was kind of like the first, not red flag, but the first indication that I was probably being used, because it just kind of happened. There was no flow. All right. And that's something to kind of be aware of for you people out there who might be in a situation where it doesn't seem like it organically went to that space. You know, it's more like one person made a decision, called the other person, said they wanted to meet up, and they already had it on their mind that that's, you know, what was going to happen. So that was definitely an indication that, you know, something was up. But at the time, I was 20, maybe 21. I wasn't turning down sex when I was attracted to somebody sexually. Like if I wanted it to, then it was going to happen. if she decided that it was going to happen, then it was definitely going to happen. I wasn't turning it down. I had a lot less discernment at the time. I was still attracted, but, you know, I might have thought of the situation a little bit more if it was a different period of time in my life. But again, you're talking about 2 years in having sex. She might have been my 5th sexual partner. So wasn't turning it down. So anyway, we did what we did, and it wasn't a great performance on my part. And mind you, I use the word performance loosely. It's kind of for a lack of a better word, or a lack of a better term. But my sexual performance was not up to par at all. As you would imagine with somebody who hasn't had many sexual partners, I was still just learning. But another part of that was I just didn't know what was going to happen that night. So I wasn't ready. So remember that. That's going to be a recurring theme. But so it wasn't a great experience for either of us. I was short. I came quick. And it's always funny saying that out loud, but it's true. It's what happened. I came quick. And so I remember asking her later on, like the next day or within the same week or something like that, like, hey, you know, let me try again, you know, because I was still very confident. Even though I hadn't had a lot of sexual partners, I was really confident in the fact that I could last long when I'm in a consistent situation with somebody. The first time was just a tricky one for me. I was probably like, I don't know, in my 20s, I was probably like, probably had like a 30 to 40% success rate on the first time. So if somebody wasn't trying to give me a second shot, I wasn't getting a second shot. And I just had to eat that. I just had to live with it. That's the lasting impression that I made. And remember that, guys, that we're kind of like performers in that sense. Just imagine going on an audition and you've got somebody judging your audition. If you don't leave a great impression on that first try, you may not get a call back. It's true. Like, you may not get a call back. So there's a lot of pressure on us as guys to be ready enough, but don't be too ready, because you also don't want to go home with blue balls and not getting any. So there's a very delicate balance that you have to try to get as a guy. And you know, it's just one of those things that we deal with the whole dating thing and the whole sex thing. But let's fast forward back to the story. So after that, you know, I asked, just like Big Ja, you know, let me redeem my stroke. And she was like, I'll never forget this. She was like, it's okay. You'll just be eye candy for me. Okay. So now, I remember at the time feeling some kind of way, like that stung a little bit because I wanted my second shot. Like, I was very egotistical And I definitely didn't want to leave somebody with the impression that I couldn't fuck. That was something that I just could not stomach. But I had to deal with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was what it was. But later on, I also found out that the boyfriend or the ex-boyfriend that she had talked to me about before we had gotten sexual was actually in the same class as us. He was in the same class. And I believe after that, they probably started, trying to reconcile, which I feel like I should get some kind of, I should get some kind of recognition for that because I had a part in that. I played a part in getting her back into that situation and possibly, helping them hopefully work things out. Not in the way that I wanted to, not through coaching. It was more through bad sex. But yeah, being told, oh, you're just eye candy. Oof, that was rough. But then also seeing that, they kind of got their groove back or they got back into it was also kind of weird, especially not knowing that he was in the class before. So it just was a strange situation. All in all, it actually turned out great because in that same class, I had built a relationship with somebody else in that class who happened to be one of my early best and favorite, sexual connections that I've had. And I'll bring her up in other stories as well. But yeah, we ended up having a great relationship sexually and a great connection. And it turned out the way it was supposed to turn out. So I'm not complaining. I'm not worried about it. So that was Get Back. I think she was trying to make her ex jealous by being with somebody in the same classroom. And there might have been some rebound as well. Like she might have been trying to engage and maybe find a new sexual partner so she can maybe leave, that situation alone. But touche, I had other thoughts, I had other ideas, apparently. But it all worked out. So that's story number one. Person number two, I was still in college. So this was maybe a year. Actually, the story I just told was senior year. So the story I'm about to tell actually happened before that. It happened, I believe, junior year. Beautiful young lady, sexy. Her body it looked like it was handcrafted by God himself. All right. He let all the other bodies kind of do their thing. He was like, no, I got to take my time with this one. Leave me be. Let me sculpt it exactly how I want. Exactly how it should be, I guess. Not how it should be. I'm just bullshitting. But her body was beautiful. So we exchanged information at some kind of function or something. Like she was somebody who we had like kind of like mutual people in common. We talked on the phone a few times and eventually she invited me over to her place. And again, at this time, and even now, like if someone invites me, if a woman invites me over to her place or we go back to my place, I don't assume that that's going to turn into sex. And I would suggest that nobody out there does that either because it makes for a weird situation if it doesn't turn into sex. I mean, somebody might end up frustrated or feeling some kind of way. I feel like it's just easier to go in, be open-minded to whatever happens. If it ends up just being watching a movie or talking all night, whatever the case may be, know what you're okay with and, know your limit, know your boundaries. So if all you want is sex and nothing more, then maybe you should establish that in the beginning. That way you're not disappointed. But definitely don't go in thinking that it needs to happen because that's when people get kind of thirsty and then also get overly aggressive. And I think especially for a guy, that's just not it's not a good place to be in. It's not a good look. You know, I've been in a situation where I thought things were going to go into sex. And then the person told me like, nah, I just was enjoying, the makeout session, but I don't necessarily want sex. So I had to just be like, oh, I'm so sorry. My bad. I totally misread that situation. So just be careful with that. So I went to her place. We chilled, watched some TV or something like that. And then eventually things, moved to the bedroom. We had a sexual encounter, a sexual experience. Also wasn't great. I didn't last long. What else? I even think the oral sex wasn't that great either. The oral sex that I gave wasn't that great, because that's the time when I used to think that the fact that I have these lips and this tongue, that's all I needed in order to really make the oral experience what it could be. I didn't use my hands at all. At that time, I just felt like I don't need those. I can just use my mouth and my tongue and I'll be fine. That might work for some people, but it goes a lot further when you use other parts of your body, like your fingers. All right. So even the head wasn't great. Right. So needless to say, I didn't get any callbacks after that. Now, I mean, I'm sure we had like a couple of back and forths, but what happens when the sex is not great. And ladies out there, what happens when the sex isn't great on the first try, and you just kind of like try to let the dude down easy without necessarily saying I'm not interested, but you just kind of like, you give that energy off that like, nah, that wasn't really it. This isn't going to work. So that's the energy I got. But with her, I remember us talking in previous conversations before it actually got to sex. And she told me that she had just come out of something with someone. And just the way that everything kind of happened, the indicator for me in that situation was we had been, getting to know each other over the phone. But just the all of a sudden, like, hey, come over, let's have sex. Like the person was already, I think, in that mindset that they wanted to have sex. It really felt like a rebound. It really felt like a rebound. And again, especially on a rebound, all right, you will not get a call back. You may not get a call back. Your chances of getting a call back are very slim if you're the rebound person and you don't, do what you can do. Like you don't perform how that person needs you to perform, because you got to think about it psychologically. That person is going to you hoping that you can at least give them equal to what they're used to being satisfied sexually, or better, because they're trying to be distracted from their last situation. They're trying to move on from their last situation. But if you're, please don't take this, personal or literal, but if you're trash for that first experience, then it's actually probably going to push that person back to their last situation. So keep that in mind. If you are a rebound, if you realize you're a rebound, or, being used for whatever other reason, that this definitely hinges on how well you do sexually. So you definitely want to, give your best and do what you can. But this is why I stress stamina, y'all. Stamina is a big part of being able to please a woman sexually, especially. Because if you can't last as long as you need to for her to get to where she needs to get, then it's going to be really tough for her to look at you and feel like she can continue having sex with you, because now it's going to start to feel like a waste of time. If she's going into it wanting to be fully satisfied and you're not able to not necessarily provide that for her, but be along the ride for her until she gets there, yeah, like I said, you're not going to get that call back. So that was a situation where, again, I didn't get the call back, but that's fine. These were all very important learning experiences as I was starting off as a young sexual being. I had to have these experiences early on, or else I wouldn't have learned ejaculation control later on in life. I wouldn't have learned it as consistently. I would have had an idea of it because I was able to do it, but I wasn't as consistent as I am now. So those experiences needed to happen. So I thank all the people in these stories for these experiences. I'm not feeling any kind of way. So the last story. This last story was maybe 2 years. I was 2 years removed from college. I was living back in Miami, going to LA Fitness pretty regularly. And one day I saw this girl in the parking lot, and she was beautiful. I mean, wow. The last person I was just, kind of focusing on the body. But this woman had oh my gosh, she had everything going on for her. She was looking good. So I approached her. We exchanged information. And again, I say eventually because you're talking about 12, 13 years ago. I don't remember all the specifics in terms of when the person asked me to meet up with him and all that. But all I know is that the meetup wasn't immediate. It kind of took some time, and I don't know. It might have taken a few weeks or something. I don't know. Anyway, we eventually meet up. I still actually remember the place that we went because the pizza was pretty good. We talked over, dinner. Everything went very smoothly. And this situation could have been, it might have been a rebound situation. It felt like a rebound situation. But at the same time, too, things went well enough. Nah, it was a rebound situation. Because later on, talking to her in different conversations, she said certain things that I was like, wait a minute. Are you not just using me, but playing me as some type of pawn in a game or some shit? But, I'll touch on that afterwards. So everything went well for dinner. She invites me back to her place. We drive back to her place. Things get sexual, which is not what I expected. Again, because I don't go in with that expectation. Although I didn't expect it, this is what happened. And you can probably guess it. Being that I wasn't ready, I was not at all ready. I mean, I had protection, but that's about the extent of how ready I was. I've got to be in a mental space of readiness in order to, or at least at that time, I had to be in a mental space of readiness to where I let my imagination already do its thing. I had a game plan. I knew this was going down and I was ready to perform, almost like game time. Like you're preparing for a big game or for a big test. When somebody popped a quiz on me like that, I was failing that quiz most of the time in terms of stamina and being able to last long, because it just wasn't something that I had mentally prepared for. Because believe it or not, stamina and being able to last long in bed, most of it is actually mental. It's how you go into it. It's how you think about sex. It's whether you put sex on a pedestal or you look at it as just an enjoyable experience. It's whether you're being present. But a lot of these things happen in your mind before it happens anywhere else. So being that I didn't have time to kind of mentally suit up, I just wasn't ready. And again, I came quick. And even when, trying to provide oral sex, that was also a weird experience because she was overly assertive, in terms of giving instruction and just kind of, it wasn't a turn on. I remember afterwards feeling like, why did I do that? And feeling like I'm not going to say I regretted it, but pretty close to feeling like I regretted it. Like she shouldn't have got that. the way she was acting, it seemed like almost like she felt like, or it seemed like she had an attitude or a way about her that was like, I was doing her a favor, but I was getting nothing out of it. Or maybe my pleasure was just coming from giving her pleasure. And that was it. Like, it wasn't a reciprocating type of attitude. And any time, which it doesn't happen a lot, but anytime I've encountered women who aren't really reciprocators, it turns me off. Like, I'm not turned on. I don't even want to continue a sexual relationship with that person if that's the type of person they are. Although I'll admit I have, and I'll have stories about those as well in later episodes. So we do our thing. It's not great. I'm feeling some kind of way on my way home because I felt like she was greedy, I guess is the word. Some people are selfish lovers, right? I don't know if she was a selfish lover, but the encounter was definitely feeling kind of one-sided and selfish on her part for me. So that's the part that I knew. Oh, and I had asked, I forgot, I left this part out. Before we had sex, there was like a picture somewhere, I don't remember, on the table or something like that. Her and some dude. It was either on a table or somewhere. And I asked her about it. And she said, yeah, this is my ex, blah, blah, blah. And then that's when it was kind of like, shit, I'm in a situation where I might be the rebound dude, because it was the fact that his picture is out. It was either out on Facebook or somewhere, but it was out somewhere. I asked about it because it was still, in the presence of wherever the picture was. I don't remember where it was at, though. Again, it was a long time ago. But that's when I knew, shit, I'm in a rebound situation again. And at the time, I didn't care, because if I was sexually attracted, I was not turning it down. Okay. Even if I knew better, mentally, I wasn't saying no. So that was that situation. And I said I was going to mention kind of some of the stuff she said after. So again, those were the 3 situations that we're going to talk about, but there were at least a few more for sure. The third segment that I, introduced earlier on in the show or in the podcast was what I learned. So one thing I learned was ejaculation control more consistently. I learned over time that even though you can't always predict when sex is going to happen, it just helped me be more ready. And this is over years of having different sexual experiences that it's helped me be more ready, even when I didn't know it was happening. So that was another part. And then the last thing I probably learned was to be ready without being overly ready, which is related to what I just said. But I learned how to do that. I learned how to be in that sweet spot of, we could chill, we can let things go wherever they're going to go, and I'm cool with that. Also, if you want to take it to the bedroom, or, you want to do it right here on the couch or wherever, in the pool, got a story about that, wherever, I'm ready for that as well. So it was finding that balance that really helped me experience sex whenever the time came. So yeah, those are my stories. Now, that was episode number 2 of the Sex Mechanic Podcast. Make sure that you are commenting in the comment section below if you have anything to say and add to the conversation, because YouTube really appreciates comments and likes and shares. So also, if you like the video, thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, And just be on the lookout for more episodes. I want to, again, bring more people on to get their perspectives on these conversations. But in the meantime, I'll talk to you all later. Peace.